Joining us now, one of the lawmakers who was part of that video, Pennsylvania Congressman and Navy veteran Chris Deluzio. He serves on the Armed Services and Transportation Committees. Congressman, how do you feel? Do you echo Senator Kelly's sentiment that, this isn't a good news story? How do you feel after this failed attempt to indict you and 5 of your colleagues for urging military members to follow the law?
My Navy brother, Mark Kelly, is spot on. It's not a good news story. The Trump administration and the DOJ lawyers doing their bidding, they tried to get a grand jury to charge us with a crime so they could throw us in prison for stating the law, for free speech. It is a dangerous escalation of these attempts to go after political opponents, to seek political retribution. And it's trying to tell people, whether you're in Congress or a patriot on the streets anywhere in America, that you ought to be quiet, that you ought to be scared, that free speech won't matter in this country. And we say absolutely not. I served this country. I wasn't the only one who did in that group. We know what it means to take the oath of the Constitution, and no one is going to intimidate me or anyone else from doing our job.
Congressman, I want to get your reaction to some of the comments we've heard from your fellow lawmakers about this attempt to indict you and a handful of other Democrats. I want to play something that was aired this morning on CNN with Senator Markwayne Mullin.
How do you feel about the Trump administration trying to send those 6 members of Congress, including 2 of your Senate colleagues, to prison?
Well, Jake, it's not the lane I walk in. I leave that to the DOJ. I'm not an attorney. Don't pretend to be an attorney. Being an attorney has never been something I want to do.
What do you make of that reaction to this effort to put you and other lawmakers in prison?
Well, much of what I'm hearing, fortunately, certainly there are Republicans in the Senate who have spoken up and said this is wrong. But what I'm hearing from the American people, more importantly, is that this is outrageous. In my district this weekend, that's what I've heard across the board around here in Western Pennsylvania, because of course it is, right? You don't throw people in prison for speech. You don't throw people in prison for stating the law. And by the way, stating the law in almost the exact same way that Pete Hegseth has stated. He even said it more directly about orders from the president. Pam Bondi, before she was Attorney General, put the same kind of sentiment in a briefing before the Supreme Court. And look, this is not just hypothetically dangerous stuff. You've got the president standing in front of the troops at Fort Bragg as their commander-in-chief, telling them on Friday to vote for the Republicans. He continues to put our troops in horribly unfair positions, to put their commanders in unfair positions. It is reckless beyond recklessness from this guy.
Congressman, we actually have the sound of that moment, the president speaking at Fort Bragg. I want to play it for anyone in our audience who hasn't seen this.
I'm thrilled to be back at one of the greatest and most celebrated military bases in the history of the world, Fort Bragg. We have your name back. We got your name back from the radical left. The radical left is not happy about it. It's another reason you have to vote for us, because they'll change it back to whatever it might be.
What do you make of that? I mean, I see you shaking your head there,
Yeah,
but also the crowd cheering for him. The crowd cheering for him.
It's indefensible. And look, when you're an active duty service member, you're ordered and compelled to attend something like that from your commander-in-chief, which in our nation's history is a totally normal thing. What you never would expect to see is your commander-in-chief tell you which party to vote for, to have on stage a Republican candidate for the United States Senate who holds no federal office, talking about how he's going to get elected to the Senate. It's just an outrageous violation of the public trust and the rule of law. And it is a dangerous thing to tell our troops as the commander-in-chief to vote for your party. And I have not heard anything out of Republicans who know better, who know that this is dangerous stuff and wrong. And of course, the president can't order our troops how to vote. That's not a lawful order to any service member from our president.
Congressman, I want to pivot for a second and talk about the shutdown that is ongoing that affects DHS and whether there are any national security concerns as a result of this shutdown, because DHS covers not only ICE, and in fact, ICE will continue to be funded despite the shutdown because of additional money that was given to the agency last year. So not only ICE and Customs and Border Protection and USCIS, but also TSA, FEMA, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Are you at all concerned about whether this creates any vulnerabilities for our national security, in part because we keep on going through these start-stop efforts with this branch of government, with this department of government, I should say?
Of course, it's exactly why the Republicans, with full control of the White House, the House, and the Senate, should not have done this. They've pre-funded ICE and CBP tens of billions of dollars. The Border Patrol and ICE has lots of money, and they are refusing to even come to the negotiating table in any reasonable way to put guardrails, put reforms, change the abuses that we're seeing out of ICE and Border Patrol. The Republicans own this. It's insane to me that they won't rein in the abuses of ICE. We heard for weeks that nothing was happening in court in this administration, calling victims of gunshots who were murdered domestic terrorists until they weren't, right? Saying there was nothing wrong, and then they withdrew from Minneapolis. They know what they're doing is out of control. They have to negotiate. And by the way, Democrats, and I'm certainly not alone in this, we're not going to fund this agency without meaningful and real changes to the way they are behaving on our streets.
Congressman, you also sit on the Transportation Committee. Are you worried at all about the stress and strain this is going to put on TSA agents and airports for Americans? You know, already TSA agents have gone through, you know, not having their paycheck and still going to work. And it doesn't really look like Republicans are coming to the table to negotiate.
I am worried. I have TSA agents at the Pittsburgh International Airport in my district. House Democrats on the Appropriations Committee have tried to take ICE and CBP to a separate provision here and fund agencies like FEMA and TSA. That's the responsible thing to do. ICE and CBP got all this money from the One Big Beautiful Bill. Democrats are not going to continue giving them money. We're not going to be willing to write checks here without changes and guardrails and reforms. Take ICE and CBP out of it, and let's get something done to fund the parts of DHS that need the money. Those people should not be going without paychecks.
Congressman Chris Deluzio, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me.